Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Arthur, better known as Joker, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down. That's right, Joker has still taken over the cinema sit-down. We got two more New York Film Festival movies to talk about. Thus far, we have talked about May December, which comes to us from Todd Haynes with Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore. Absolutely phenomenal stuff over there. We just finished talking about Maestro, directed, written, and starred in by Bradley Cooper. An absolute powerhouse, this guy. Everything he touches is just gold when he's behind the camera. Let alone Carey Mulligan, who's phenomenal in this flick. Like, everything about this just screams Oscar run. If you want to see my thoughts to that, you can see them right up there. But now we turn our attention to a director that the Seaman and Joker have not seen behind the camera in quite some time. And when I heard he was doing this movie with Adam Driver, I got really excited. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Ferrari. And that, of course, is coming to us from director Michael Mann. Now, I know the Seaman. Back in the 2000s, anything that Michael Mann touched was like must-watch content. Collateral is an all-timer that I love Collateral. It's so freaking good. And Michael Mann was very, very present in and around like high school and college for me. And getting to see him come back, do a biopic on Enzo Ferrari, and have Adam Driver in the lead, I mean, I was super excited. And when it comes to Mann and Driver and the rest of this cast, which includes an Oscar-caliber supporting actress performance from Penélope Cruz. If she's not nominated, I honestly might be shocked come Oscar time. She is a powerhouse in this one. But whether it's her, Patrick Dempsey, Shailene Woodley, everybody that shows up in this flick does an excellent job. And for the most part, this one is a pretty big hit for me across the board. My issues stem from the writing. There's something about the first two acts where it's not just... It doesn't quite fully click in, right? Like the story that we're telling takes a minute to kind of get itself settled and get the audience locked in. Now, Mann does some really cool things in the first two acts, but the story isn't quite there. And right around like the beginning of the second act, almost halfway through, it finally clicks. And the back end of this movie is electric. I mean, grip to your seat, eyes glued to the screen, like. It really, really gets you going down the back half of this movie, and I think that's where it really, really succeeds as we get into one of these big races that Enzo, has his team kind of building to the whole movie, while also kind of having everything that's going on in his personal life coming to a head finally. And just the way the back end of the movie plays out, it's just phenomenal. So writers here are Troy Kennedy Martin and Brock Yates, and while I think they do, like I said, have a strong finish to the movie, took them a minute to find their footing. But overall, the story that we get is pretty fascinating. Enzo is, similarly to Leonard Bernstein, someone who has an interesting relationship with his wife and how that relationship works. And anytime we're kind of diving into that stuff, I was very engaged in those first two acts. Some of the racing stuff, like with what he's building with the team and the business, while it was interesting, like I said, it took a minute for the movie to find its footing and kind of thread that needle all the way through where, like, now I'm locked in and going. But what you get in those first two acts with looks of Enzo, and what he does as the owner of Ferrari, how he interacts with his wife in business dealings, how the business is done, and how he demands perfection from his team, right? Like, if you're going to go out there and win, there's a conversation where, like, he pulls one of the racers out of an earlier race, and the guy's like, I don't get what you're doing. And he's like, there comes a point where two cars are going, and either you pedal to the metal or you brake, or nobody brakes and we crash. And what Enzo would expect from his racers is to be the guy who doesn't brake. You're not going to be the one that gives in. You're either going to make that guy run off the road because he's not going to brake and you're both going to die, or you're going to be the one that forces him to brake and take the lead. That's the mindset of Enzo, and that was something that I really, really dug in the movie. And then when you get into what Michael Mann is doing behind the camera, I mean, classic Michael Mann stuff. There is a look to Mann's movies, and while This one, doesn't quite have that kind of dark, grainy look because a lot of this is happening during the daytime. It does have that feel. You get those wonderful close-ups and at different angles on Enzo at times where it's like driver just walks into the frame and as soon as you see it, you're like, oh God, Michael Mann is behind the camera. And how he moves the camera, how he sets up the sequences, and how he executes the races. Unbelievable. And one thing I was not ready for with this movie was the carnage. We're back in, I believe, the 1950s. These Ferraris are just open cockpit, not really any safety harnesses on those cars. And when these cars hit corners, spin out, flip, like they bounce. Like there's a bounce to the cars. And then what happens? There's like 2 or 3 crashes that get documented in the film. And every single one of them, the entire audience, like in unison, is like, it's like that stuff was nuts. I've never seen anything like that in a racing movie. And it's funny because we're coming off of Gran Turismo, which had a crash in it that I was like, holy crap. And then I went and found the actual footage and it's like spot on identical in that movie. And you're just sitting there going, that's nuts. These crashes are more insane. And like I said, there's a couple of them, and just the carnage that is left after these crashes, specifically the final one in the big race in the third act. Like, you just sit back and you go, race car drivers and race car fans were a different breed. You know what I mean? And like, this was the first time I'd ever really watched a racing movie and understood like the kind of mental state you have to be in to be a race car driver. Like, you gotta be a little off kilter, because if you don't win and get all the way through the race clean, the chances of death are quite high. And anytime that man is giving you one of those sequences, it really is shot in a way where I don't think it's overly, grotesque or gory or violent, but you see what happens and you're just like, wow. Now, on top of that, like I said, the race car sequences are great. The way that he uses the car and the car engines. One of the things that I really loved about Gran Turismo that had me super excited in the trailer for this one was sound design. Anytime you get sound design in and around a racing movie, like, you have the ability to create adrenaline just with noise. And the way in which, your sound team and Mann develop the sound to Ferrari, it's glorious, man. Those engines are revving, the way you shift, the way that Mann uses the shifting and the changing and the sounds of the engine into how he's shooting an action sequence in the car is just wonderful. And then when he's not doing the action and the race car driving and stuff, you really do get a sense of like just great things when you're having these conversations. The way where he puts Penelope and Driver and how he shoots them, whether Penelope's at the bank or she's having, a back and forth with Driver, or, Driver's going from his mistress's home or vice versa, and how you're kind of seeing how Enzo's life works, stepping out of his house. Italy just goes nuts. Paparazzo is all over the place. Same with his wife. Like, getting to see Mann kind of navigate all those things really pops on screen. It's the thing for me that held my attention in the first 2 acts, where I was waiting for the movie to kind of click in. Mann keeps you actively engaged, as do the performances, which are stellar here. It all starts with Adam Driver. You guys know the Seaman's thoughts on Adam Driver, and Joker is very, very similar. This dude is one of the best in Hollywood. Anytime he steps out and does anything, he is phenomenal. And as Enzo Ferrari, he's great. The Italian accent is solid all the way through the movie. You never really feel like you're hearing Driver come through. You always feel like you're hearing Enzo. His stature and just the way that he carries himself. This is a guy who did racing. One of the things I really liked is we don't get to see much of Enzo's racing life. We pick up about 10 years into him having created Ferrari with his wife. But the way Mann opens the movie, you do get to see Driver racing it's like old-timey footage of race cars and racing. And it's one of those, like, you're watching it, it almost feels like someone pushed play on an old tape. Like, the way that Mann shoots it, it gives you that really, like, old film quality. And, it's square boxed. And it's one of those moments where you get to see, in a very brief stint, the joy that racing brings Enzo. And then you fast forward to 10 years into being the owner of Ferrari, And you not only see the joy that he gets out of racing, but by that point, it's more the pressure to win all the time. Ferrari must be the best. If somebody makes beats one of Ferrari's records, Ferrari's got to get back out there and take the record back. How desperate it is for him and his team to win all the time is something that driver exudes so well, and the fear that Enzo Ferrari could instill in his race car drivers, like, you want to keep your seat, you better win. And I love Driver in all of those interactions, but where he really thrives, and for me, where the movie really shines, yeah, he's got great back and forth with Shailene Woodley. They have some good scenes. Some of the other people that he comes across throughout the movie. But anytime he is on screen with Penelope Cruz, that's when this movie is really firing for me. That, and then obviously the racing down the backstretch. Like I said, the third act is just fantastic. But when you're just looking at Driver in rooms, having conversations, or bouncing off someone, him and Penelope Cruz are paired perfectly together. And whether it's the anger that comes out in a fight, or how he'll kind of retreat and not like let it get fully blown into something insane. It's fascinating to watch the two of them bounce off each other, because like there are things going on in Ferrari's life that Laura has issues with, and it's interesting to see how, like, at this point, this relationship has dissolved for both of these people, but there's still this love between the two, and respect, obviously, as owners of Ferrari. And what Enzo has going on allows Driver to juggle a lot of different things, and he always keeps it in this like very, very contained presence that Enzo emits, and he's just stellar. And then, like I said, Penelope Cruz, I think this woman is on her way to getting nominated for an Oscar. Laura's story and her half of the movie is fascinating. The things that she's dealing with, how she runs the company, some of the things that are going on that are issues for her. And at the heart of all of this is a very personal matter for both her and Enzo. And how they each respond to what that personal thing is, how they go about their lives around that thing, is fascinating to watch. And Penelope, much like Driver, anytime she's on screen, you're just locked in. She's magnetic and heartbreaking and powerful. The strength of this woman, you feel it at all times. She's a no-nonsense person. Like, Enzo is this guy who is looked at by everybody as, almost like a godlike, in the world of racing. And Laura is the person who can check him, is the one that can keep him in line and kind of get him to be like, hey. But, as you're watching the deterioration of this relationship simultaneously, the way you juggle the love that used to be that's no longer there, and the pain that brings, it's stark difference between what's going on with Driver's Enzo and Cruz's for Laura. But watching Cruz on screen, it's one of the strongest performances I've seen from her, and she's so good. The rest of the cast here is also excellent. Shailene Woodley plays one of Enzo's lovers. And that relationship is fascinating, and she doesn't have a ton to do, and I didn't think she was necessarily the strongest, but she's good. Shailene is always good, and here, like I said, she's not given a ton, and it's not her best work, I don't think, but she's solid. She's just clearly being outacted by both Driver and Cruz. And that's the case for everybody that pops up in this movie, right? Anyone that's a supporting character, they give you good stuff. Patrick Dempsey, I love that man. Seeing him with this white blonde hair was crazy and fun, and he's excellent in the movie. All of the different drivers that come through are great, specifically Gabrielle Leone. He really pops on screen and is one of these, supporting characters that doesn't get a ton, but the moments that he gets, he really capitalizes on, and he has a great back and forth and chemistry on screen with Sarah Gadon, who plays Lyndon Christian. She's an actress that is dating Alfonso de Portago, and that relationship is kind of interesting to watch kind of maneuver. It's one of these things where it's like, for me, the script I don't think is always the strongest around the supporting characters, but how Mann uses those moments to really amplify things with either Enzo or with Laura. That's what the other cast members really bring, is kind of enhancing what's happening between the two of them. And that's the thing that I love the most about this movie, is that relationship, how that relationship is, where it currently is and where it's going. And then when you see how it all ultimately plays out. Like, those two on screen are the gold. And then the movie really kicks in the back half where you are just gripped to the edge of your seat, can't take your eyes off anything that's happening. And it all builds to this wonderful crescendo, both for Enzo's personal life and his professional life. And this is a movie, though, that I just overall really, really dug. So let's get the Jokers up and give this one a score. Like I said, I think it was so nice to have Michael Mann back behind camera here. I love the way that he shoots a movie. I love the way that he tells a story visually, and getting to see some of those classic close-ups on Driver in certain shots and the different angles that he'll put the camera. Everything that Mann was doing, I thought, was really, really good, and he's one of the main reasons that you have an electricity in the movie, even if the story isn't always clicking. And, my only knock would really be that Troy Kennedy Martin and Brock Yates, it takes a minute for them to find the right lane for what the movie needs to be from the writing standpoint. But once you get through that rocky first act or so, it does click in, it becomes much more engaging, and it allows everything to click, from what Mann is doing to what, Yates and Martin are doing in the script, and what you're getting from everybody on screen. And then when you think, like, for me, this one wasn't one where the score really, really popped, although I thought Daniel Pemberton did a wonderful job, especially down the back stretch when you're working with, the crescendoing of the stories. But for me, it's really all about the sound. And that comes from sound designer David Werntz. The sound in this is excellent. The gear shifting, the noises of the cars, how that plays into the scenes, and how Mann uses those, sound pieces to elevate elements of the story or things that are happening. I mean, that is really where the gold in this is. And then it's, for me, watching Driver and Penelope Cruz just act their asses off, and specifically when they're on screen together, those are always the moments that are really clicking the most for me. Really, really solid movie. A great return from Michael Mann. Another fantastic outing from Adam Driver. And probably an Oscar-caliber performance from Penelope Cruz. There's some really good stuff in there. A little bit of a rocky start script-wise, but once it locks in, this thing is locked in, solid, and you can't take your eyes off it. I'm going 3.5 out of 5 Jokers. And yeah, it's one of those where if the first two acts clicked in a little bit faster, this is probably a 4 easy. But the fact that they don't, I think it kind of takes you a minute to really engage with this movie. But once you start engaging, everything here clicks and fires, and that back half of the movie is just excellent. So 3.5 out of 5 for the old Joker on Ferrari. The question now is, what about you? Have you had a chance to see Ferrari? If you're out in the New York area, did you get to check it out at New York Film Festival? Did you maybe see it at one of the other festivals? I don't remember which one it debuted at. But if you had a chance to see it, keep it spoiler-free. What was working for you? Did you like the race car stuff? Did you like the acting, the directing? What did you think of the script, the sound design? What was clicking? What wasn't? And if you haven't seen the movie, is it on your to-do list? Is it something that you're looking forward to seeing? Have we enticed you to want to see it? Like I said, it is solid all the way through, but man, that back half, dude, when you get into it, so good. So hopefully we've enticed you to want to see Ferrari when it comes out. No matter how you're feeling, good, bad, indifferent on Ferrari, I want your thoughts down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out to see Mann and Joker anytime that we're talking about movies, TV, trailer reactions, Joker's going to give you a couple of those before the old C-Man takes the reins back. But you want to be here for that. You want to show a little love to my buddy C-Man. Well, hey, come join the C-Maniac Nation. It's super easy. Just jump over there, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the Joker. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those C-Man goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.